Okay, good morning. Thank you everyone for joining. In the past session, we talked about Nvidia, but we didn't get into details, right? So I was thinking I must ask YCX to join because, aside from Bitcoin, his another high conviction stock is Nvidia. So I think we can go through the details. I think the earning release, they came out like one week plus. But we haven't get into the details. I think this is a good opportunity for us to get into to talk in length about Nvidia. So if you guys have any questions, please put into the Slido. We will go through as many questions as possible. I think that's just a introduction. So this question actually is not from me. I saw someone asking these first questions, right? Explain Nvidia business and why we should buy to 7 years old in 3 minutes. So I just highlighted this comment because I think this is a good starting point. So I'll pass to YCX. So let's go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Let me see if I can share screen or something. Okay, so basically Nvidia has 4 different main segments, which is gaming, data center, professional visualization, and automotive. And what you're seeing on the screen right now, right, the current growth is listed down there as reported in the earnings of 2021 Q4, which is that gaming has a 6% growth, data center 11%, professional visualization 11%, and automotive negative 7%. So I'll give like a brief introduction to what these different segments are, and these numbers which I put on screen, right? These are the 4 numbers. The four last rows are the numbers that I more or less estimate that they will grow by quarter on quarter or year on year for the next few quarters lah. So, which is that you can see from my I'll begin with gaming, right? I put the gaming as the next quarter is probably going to be another 5 to 6% growth, and then for the year itself is going to be a 25 to 30% growth, and for the year on year growth for 2023 is a wide range between 50 to 30%. I'll explain more on why I give such a wide range later. And then 2024 onwards is also going to be a wide range and is going to expectedly trend down. For data center wise, right, it's a growth of 11% this current, and then I'm projecting very high numbers for all this, is in line with what they themselves project, and it's also in line with what the industry itself is looking at. And then for professional visualization, again, this is also in line with what data center, because they kind of go hand in hand. And automotive itself, this is more of a variable factor that really depends on securing the right partnership deals, and also depends on the current regulatory climate and the current macro climate. So moving on to the next slide. Gaming drivers. So primarily speaking, for gaming itself, there's 2 main drivers that are listed over here by me, and this is what I actually take note of. And when we look at PC sales itself, currently, I mean, these numbers are not exactly reported inside the quarterly earnings, but it's more of like research that I done by myself, which I look at the different numbers from other downstream systems that I actually use. So, which is that currently the RTX 30 series, which is its latest models that they are selling, is about 15% uptake on Steam, and based on historical trend itself, this year is expected to hit about 25% uptake of the total PC share, and over a lifetime of probably by the next year or by the next year, it should reach a maximum of 35% of the max lifetime. So you can kind of see from here that actually the growth for PC sales is cyclical, especially laptops, and there's going to be a slowdown. But of course, inside the quarterly earnings report, right, this is not going to be mentioned lah. They just mentioned that sales is going to go up this year, and because it's not exactly clear what exactly they classify as gaming, right, beyond PC sales, I'm going to take into account that actually GeForce Now itself is growing at an exponential rate lah, which is for those who don't know, GeForce Now is actually their cloud gaming segment, which is actually right now a subscription-based service, which what they do is that there are many people who want to game on whatever devices that they want to game on. Like it could be gaming on the TV, it could be gaming on the handphone or on the PC itself, and they might not have the graphical they might not have the graphical hardware in order to game at the levels that they want. So GeForce Now is more of like a rental service for their graphical capability. And in this area, the growth is actually very good because they actually implemented a model that is agreeable with both the publishers and with the gamers themselves. Because I suppose that what's different from GeForce Now compared to the other cloud gaming services that's put out by Microsoft, Amazon, or Google is that instead of just getting publishers to publish the games on their cloud or to actually develop their own exclusive games, right? What Nvidia does over here is that they work directly with the publishers to enable them to run copies of the game, so that they don't actually eat into the sales of the publishers. So the users on the GeForce Now platform do not actually buy games. All they do is they subscribe to GeForce Now to get their graphical fidelity. And the games that they are playing on it are actually games that are there's actually they purchase themselves on their own platforms like Steam or Epic Games or Blizzard or Battle.net kind of deal. So there's also extra incentive because the publishers who run all these gaming platforms, right, they do not see Nvidia as a threat eating into their businesses because they still get to sell as many copies, and in fact they might even sell more because these gamers are able to just play the games and without needing the hardware to do so. They can just subscribe to say $120 a year or depending on what kind of tier that they want to subscribe to for what kind of graphical fidelity. So in terms of this, right, it is actually a very good expansion opportunity because right now this is what it does, but it can support more devices in the form of other smart TV partnership deals and also other consoles and things moving towards this area. So in fact, also like you see in the local Singaporean market, StarHub itself is partnering with GeForce Now as well to provide this kind of services for people who are willing to game but don't want to spend the money to buy like a $3,000 or $4,000 laptop or PC. So that's for gaming itself. So for data center drivers, the three primary drivers are AI, high throughput processing, and economies of scale. And the main narrative over here that most businesses, because data center is primarily driven by businesses who want to expand into this area, is that these businesses, they all have a working model, and working model as in working business model in which they can generate profits. But the idea is that they are competing against each other, and they are also recognizing that they have to move on with the times to move into this data-driven approach so as to better tailor their solutions to their customers, be it in whatever field, healthcare or energy or whichever it is. And the thing is that while they may be very good in their current business, they actually need to rely on technologies that they do not necessarily have the capital to build themselves, unlike say Google or Amazon or to some extent Tesla as well. They do not have this capability to build their own infrastructure, to build their own computers, and to build their own data products. Data product hardware to actually create this kind of create the data product that they want. So what Nvidia is trying to position itself is as a one-stop solution for all of this, and which is why we can see from its acquisitions, right? Prior to this ARM failure acquisition, it acquired Mellanox, which is known for its high throughput processing and networking solutions. And this is the area that they want to scale towards. And so far, this narrative itself is playing out to be all signs are pointing to it playing out very well. So it is not likely that this area fails lah. Yeah, this area will be the most looked upon area, and based on the earnings report itself, if you look at the tone and you look at the emphasis of what they are talking about, they put a high emphasis on this data center driver as well, and they even forecast that they forecast quite confidently that in Q1 itself they will increase the revenue in this area by 450 million, which if you see the current numbers right now is about what's the number? It's about I believe it's about 3.5 or 3.6. Let me see. Yeah, it's about 3.2 billion, and it's expected to grow to 3.7 billion, and they are quite confident they'll hit this number. So this part I'm not really worried about. Yeah, and the narratives are right, and the data and the data on the internet, right, shows that is right as well, that these businesses are having a lot of data and they are looking towards moving into this area lah. Yeah. So for professional visualization drivers, what professional visualization means is that there's a lot of all these design for CAD software and also media design, all your videos and all those models and Metaverse, all these things, right? They all fall under this particular area. And the assumptions that I have here is that the growth in data center will drive adoption, and the growth in gaming will also drive adoption, one from the consumer side and the other from the business side. And this area, currently the numbers, it shows that they are having 11% year-on-year growth, and it looks very optimistic. But the thing is that they are also pushing for this Nvidia Omniverse, which is unproven, but they have said that about 700 companies have already on board and likely to pay. And the other thing is about the digital twin narrative, which is that they can replicate, or rather, they are moving towards helping companies replicate their physical spaces inside the online space for production purposes, which is to say factories would be able to have a digital twin so that they can model which are the points of failure, because they can speed up time inside the digital twin. So this is the professional visualization drivers. And lastly is the automotive drivers, and this area is even more unproven, but is what Nvidia is highly pushing for. And it's actually the drivers that are running for it is actually the new partnership deals that are raised against competition. And because if everybody starts to use the same kind of AI, right, then there is a standardization and they are able to form a better lobby towards the EU and towards the American side that can lead to faster adoption. Yeah. So those are the narratives they are trying to play into right now. And lastly, this area is more of an area that I'm not sure where is it classified under, but from what I did my research on the internet and also talking to developers, the Jetson, which is a device like the Raspberry Pi, is very popular amongst developers right now, and it is a new area of growth because the benefits of Jetson is that it is well integrated and AI focused, along with a focus on video and audio processing. So this is good for a wide variety of real life use cases for IoT and autonomous devices that can be used for in all areas lah. And lastly, what I like to research on that is this is a constant process itself, is that there's actually not very clear data on who are the exact business customers in Nvidia. I mean, there is snippets here and there of like the major customers, but ideally it would be good to actually know all their customers and to see how many customers are the growth of the customers and the size of their purchases on a quarterly basis or on a year-on-year basis. And lastly, the last thing would be that to actually look at the sentiment online and also look at the sentiment in retail shops in local areas on the stock availability and sales of Nvidia hardware in different regions as well. So overall, this is how I go about to looking at Nvidia itself. And I'll open the floor to questions. And I also that's what I'll do.
Hey, I have a question, and thanks YCX for bringing us through the Nvidia sort of business model and dissecting different domain of business you just discussed. So actually, I'm quite interested in particularly one area, which is the Geforce business, the Geforce subscription you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Right. I just want to hear your thought maybe on sort of the consumer behavior on that front, because you cover a lot more about what the corporate side of things is. So like, for example, Nvidia Geforce is a computing layer and it's not competing with the other publisher, developer and distributor on the end, right? So essentially it works a bit different from a lot of the subscription model from the consumer side that we know of, like Netflix and Spotify, right? Where someone just subscribes something and then they can play everything on the menu, right? So they have to go out and purchase like game X from developer A and then game Y from developer B, right? So
correct.
From Steam or whatnot. So the thing is, right, could there be I just want to hear your thought, like, would there be a possibility if someone comes up with something similar like Geforce, meaning a game computing layer, but then they open up the game menu, right, which has a bit more offering, right? I know they are title exclusive to some platform, but then expanding sort of their catalog so that consumer just subscribe like $9.99 a month and then they can play a lot of different games, right? Do you see that as a possibility as well with the other competitor, given the gaming landscape? Thanks.
Right. So the thing about how the Geforce Now layer actually works, as you rightly put, is the gaming compute layer, is that it doesn't really like I'm sure you. I'm not sure if you know about like something like the Humble deal. Like there's this Humble bundle thing that whereby, in fact, there's actually many such deals whereby you can just subscribe to whatever. Let's say you pay like a certain amount of fee for each month, and each month they will just allow like a rotation of games that you can play, or they allow you access to the library of games you can sample and play, that kind of deals. So this model itself is used in a lot of cloud gaming models, but it's also used in terms of like selling games, or rather they allow people to like say trial the games for that particular time frame. Is the model used for even something like I believe it's like Xbox Live or something, that they also have this kind of models, or PlayStation Plus, kind of things. The thing is that because what Nvidia is doing is that Nvidia is identifying the problem at the problem at the end, which is that a lot of all these hardware is actually currently very expensive, and these gamers they might not actually want to like spend so much to get the top of the line hardware just to game, and because they might not have that much money, or it could be all kinds of reasons. It could be supply reasons and things. And at the same time, for the gamers themselves, one of the reasons why a lot of the cloud gaming platforms don't take up, right, is that gamers right now, they are locked into particular platforms that they like to game on. And there's a lot of cost, a lot of effort spent into developing these platforms that the gamers actually want to stay on the platforms. Like, for example, Steam or Battle.net or Epic Games. These platforms, they have a lot of expenditure to build up on this kind of customer loyalty for the gamers themselves. And the gamers actually want to game on these platforms, and there's also a lot of gamers that don't actually want to like keep signing up for different things just to be able to games. Like, for example, you can see there's a lot of fracture in terms of the gamers platform, whereby you see there's the EA platform, there is the Battle.net platform, all these platforms, right? Gamers prefer to just go onto one platform, and ideally that platform does not do much that really intrudes into their things, and is where all the gamers are. It's kind of like, when you're using WhatsApp or you're using Telegram, you prefer everyone to be on Telegram or on WhatsApp, that kind of things. Yeah. So that is the angle that Geforce Now is coming in to
I have a questions on the market share. On this Geforce Now platform, right? This is essentially the cloud gaming space, right? And I think this is still quite new, that there isn't that many competitors right now, right? So I recall we have Google Stadia, and then we have Amazon also entering the space, and maybe there's maybe Microsoft as well, right? Do you have any idea in terms of the market share, like who's actually the top, second, and third place?
I'm not exactly sure, and to be honest, the market share kind of things, because the space is very young, the market share is not really that important. Is more about like the growth rates of the different platforms themselves. That means they should be comparing against themselves rather than comparing against each other right now. Because as you can see over here, even on the Geforce Now, the number of users and bear in mind, the Geforce Now is actually, these are all paying users. So like when I put the word 12 million over there, it's actually 12 million paying probably a minimum of $11 a month or something. Yeah, it could be more. Shouldn't be less, but could be more. So that's the kind of numbers that are being put up. But in terms of looking at the other cloud providers, I haven't actually looked at their numbers and their growth yet. But what I do know is that for like something like Google Stadia, they are facing a lot of blowback from the publishers' side, because the game publishers themselves, they invest a lot of money in developing their games, and they are not willing to really put it out on other people's platform and let all these platforms take a cut out of it, because it really eats into their profit margins, unless there is some kind of deals that really entice them to go in. So it's a matter of like, if you remember, it's like the Xbox and PlayStation kind of 2010 era, whereby these game publishers are just being wooed by the particular platforms to either go into Xbox or go into PlayStation. But nowadays, they are more like interchangeable. You see everyone just releasing multi-platform. But back then, if you remember, in the 2010s, there's all kinds of exclusivity deals, and these platform owners actually pay for these games to get onto their platforms first. Yeah, so that is the way that these cloud platforms actually compete against each other. Like if you are trying to go for content wise, yeah. So that's the way it goes, lor. And yeah.
Just a follow-up question on that is that you do see that the approach that Nvidia is using, basically their cloud gaming space, they are renting out the hardware, the cloud hardware that they have, right? It's a bit like Amazon business model, right? So they just give it as a service kind of business model, and this approach has the least conflict of interest with the publishers. Or are they any business, let's say, like I'm looking at, let's say, Microsoft, Sony PlayStation, this kind of other business, are they also face a similar problem, or what's their approach compared to Nvidia?
Their approach is basically the old style of approach, which is that we have a platform and we want to get users on our platform, and the way we do that is that, okay, I will call it like if the Netflix style or the Disney Plus style, okay? So the Netflix style or Disney Plus style is that we want to have more exclusive shows on our this streaming service, because cloud is basically streaming service. So we want to get it on our streaming service, and we will use our content to entice people to sign up onto our platform. That is the traditional way of thinking about cloud. But what the Geforce Now thinks is that is not about this particular layer. It's more about that these gamers, they look, I can game on my PC or I can game on my handphone, right? And sometimes I want to game on my handphone, but then I know that my handphone cannot run this particular intensive game. It's just not possible. However, there's a way I can stream it. If I can stream it, then all I need to do is to have a good internet connection, and I can play on the MRT or whatever, things like that. Yeah. So, moving towards this area is recognizing that the problem isn't the content itself. The problem is that the hardware itself. The gamers want that particular graphical fidelity, but they are unable to get it on. And for the publishers themselves, they also kind of like this model, because it means that they are not, because you can see the Nvidia hardware as complement products to the games. If more people buy the Nvidia hardware, chances are more will game, and when more game, if there are more new games coming out that require like higher graphics and things, they are more likely to go and buy a laptop with a better graphics card. So they are complement products. In this way, Geforce Now actually enables it such that it retains its complement product idea, right, rather than compete directly with the games and as substitute products, which is what something like Amazon or Google Stadia is doing, which is like you see Google Stadia is enticing developers to say, hey, come develop on our Google Stadia or publish your game on our Google Stadia so that we can play, so that people on Google Stadia can play. That is a very, I would say, unsustainable model, because you run into a lot of competition, like how Netflix is running into competition with Disney Plus, and there's a like a growth cap, because when you start competing with all these, there's the growth starts to get capped by it,
Yeah, I think their approach is that they try not to compete too much with the publisher. They just want to provide the hardware layer and let the publisher do the games, the software sides, right? So there's a clear distinction between the two, so that they are not in conflict with each other. So it becomes a win-win situation. Actually, my next questions, right? Just curious, because all this cloud gaming stuff, I recall it just like, even now you can say that it barely started, right?
Yep.
But the question is like, why they just started now? Because, gaming, it has been here since like years, like decades ago, right? But the cloud gaming specifically just coming now. Like, what has changed that enable this type of business model or this technology? Is it like, do we need like 4G or is it like something, some upgrades in terms of the technology that allow this? Or actually currently we still don't have the enough hardware that we need 5G, for example, to make this become better and make it possible? Do you know some history on this?
Yeah, so actually I looked at YouTube videos of those reviews on all these cloud gaming things, and basically they always have this concern that, or rather they always highlight that it is based a lot on the internet speed. Because if your internet bandwidth is good, then you are definitely going to get a better cloud gaming experience. And this has been consistent ever since the start of cloud gaming, which is probably like 3-4 years back ago. And actually, I also like to mention one thing. Geforce Now actually started in the same league as like Google Stadia and all that kind, which is that they try to go for content. Okay, it's just that in the last 2 years, they switched from a content provider kind of model to a hardware layer kind of provider model. Yeah, so which is like hardware as a service. Basically, that's what it is, rather than content as a service. Yeah, so actually, you're right in that it's actually the network speed, and that more people actually want to go towards mobile gaming, and also the mobile gaming segment. But the thing is that the one thing that people don't really get is that there are many people who say, oh, mobile gaming is going to expand, but these gamers sometimes they are playing mobile games because they don't get to play better games, and the mobile games are just those kind of the usual kind of games that can only run on the mobile and aren't really very good. And so Geforce Now actually eats into this particular mobile gaming share by just going with this area, yeah. Rather than see it as a fight towards rather than as you start to have more mobile developers develop mobile games, which you all know is usually the quality isn't that good. The idea is to bring the PC games over to the mobile side through streaming. That is what is being brought about here. Yeah. And if you see, even if you see, like, say, I mean, Singapore itself is considered a very high connectivity place. I mean, highest connectivity place is South Korea, and USA is still considered quite backward. But for Singapore itself, you can see that for those of y'all who serve national service, right, you know that in the past, national service did not allow smartphones, and then subsequently they allowed smartphones, and then after they allowed smartphones, then you kind of see that the predominant culture inside national service that they like to game on the phone, because there's nothing else much to do inside besides gaming and like whatever. Yeah, so this is the reason why the games start to be able to be played inside, right, is that the internet connectivity has gotten better, and that's why people can start watching Netflix shows, streaming all kinds of things. The data bundles are also getting cheaper or getting more. The cost is more agreeable compared to last time when the data cost is more expensive. Yeah. So these are the factors that can lead towards Geforce Now being in a key position to expand in this area. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks a lot for that. Yeah, I think you are right to pointing out the drop in the cost, like the monthly package, all these telcos. I think these are big factors as well, not just the technology. Sometimes it's just the pricing part. Okay, just scroll down to see if there's any questions on Nvidia. I think I saw just now there's one question on valuation. How do you have any comments, or do you think this is still very expensive now? What's the comment with regards to Nvidia valuation?
I think the Nvidia valuation right now is normally valued. That means it probably a bit on the overweight side. I mean on the overvalued side. But right now it is to me is correctly valued in terms of how it grows. Yeah. The issue about here, because if you do a DCF model, you roughly come out about, I mean, if you go by very, very, very low estimates whereby Nvidia only grows, say, 10 to 20% a year or whatever, you'll probably come up to a price of like, say, $80 to $100 for the share right now, 80 to 100. But if you just project a bit higher, which is, let's say 30%, right, growth, is probably about 150. It's about 150. I mean, if you go DCF for the next 10 years, yeah. So it's about $150. But thing is that Nvidia isn't growing at 30%. Nvidia right now is growing at like close to 40 to 50% a year kind of things. And the past year itself has been driven primarily by gaming. But based on what I see and based on the trends in terms of data itself, is that this data center growth is just going to be the dominant narrative for Nvidia going forward for the next at least 2 to 3 years, while all these companies start to build out their own data products. Because right now, all the companies, sufficiently big companies, they all recognize that the data product is the way to go. Because the old days of economies of scale, whereby you just build a product and you kind of project that is what the customers want, does not really work that well anymore. Nowadays, customization and more pinpoint usage of the data to cater your solutions directly to the customer, right, is the way to go. And also to sell like complete solutions to your customers rather than just sell a certain part itself. Yeah,
actually, I have one curious question with regards to the data part. You know, all these TikTok, even Reels, right? The Facebook Reels, they have all this skin. I don't know what they call it. Like they put on the skin and then they put on all these nice effects, right? All these require a lot of analytics, not machine learning stuff, in order to come up with the effects, right? Facebook also recently they commented that they will spend quite a fair bit into all this machine learning stuff. Do you think they are using Nvidia service or hardware in order to come up with these things? Are they the main beneficiary?
I wouldn't say to develop the effects, but more of to see which effects are more popularly received. So, like the TikTok model is they put out like periodically they'll put out like a series of effects that or filters or effects that all these people can use, and then they will kind of see, okay, so maybe like let's say the dog ears and the dog nose thing is used popularly amongst like women influencers. So then they'll start to they start to see, oh, okay, so this area is being used by that. They'll start to reinforce and recommend it to more women influencers in that direction. And they have to do all this in real time because the trends change very quickly now. It's not like in the past whereby the trends you can just do like a weekly or a monthly kind of thing. The trends nowadays are like real time, and they have to, if you want to do something that like quickly recommends the products, I mean, this kind of filters and effects or songs or whichever quickly, right? They have to do it in real time right now, and real time, and you can know that with more users, that means that there's more data, and this more data you can kind of start to see the different patterns, and then from there you can also start to inject in like different product placements and things in their particular platforms that are more catered towards this area. The whole point of all this AI in terms of, for say, Snap and Facebook, in fact, I do believe that in their transcript they actually mentioned this. Let me just look at the transcript again. Snap. Right, so you see in the transcript itself, this statement was made by Colette Kress, their CFO. There's this portion that says that these AI models are trained on video GPUs in AWS and perform inference 10x faster on the AWS GP service and on our CPUs. Social media company Snap use Nvidia GPUs and Merlin Deep Recommender software to improve inference cost efficiency by 50% and decrease latency to 2x. So you can see over here that this in line with what I say, which is that the inference cost efficiency and the latency itself, this means that they are doing real-time stuff. That's why the inference cost is a very important thing. The lower your inference cost, the faster you can do real-time things. And then it says, for the third year in a row, industry benchmarks show that NVIDIA AI continues to lead the industry in performance. And blah, blah, blah. So particularly, he also, besides mentioning Snap, he also mentions Meta platforms, which you know as Facebook. And then towards the end, he also mentions about things like Cisco, Hitachi, these other companies that make use of their AI. It's all in terms of this particular trying to make inference as fast as possible to recommend things in a seamless way that users will not like say, hey, this is an ad that I do not want to see, and this is an ad that I think is very annoying. Yeah, because once you start to have ads that are very annoying, the user starts to associate your platform with negative feelings or negative thoughts, and then they will start to think that this platform is very lousy, or they prefer to move to a platform that are more, they will think is lesser advertisements, but actually it's just that the advertisements agree with what they are currently thinking at that particular point in time.
Yeah, this one is very funny because when all the iOS tracking stuff, right, then I think most users will say, okay, I don't allow Facebook to track my data, and then they see all the irrelevant ads that will blame that, okay, this platform just sucks. So you know, this is the dilemma. This is the problem. It's so funny. So okay, I think come back to the valuation. Let me summarize just now what you said. I think if we just look at the Nvidia current revenue and their current income, I mean, if we just do a PE kind of things and just look at it, for sure, it looks very expensive, but the valuation is mostly justified by very high growth rate. Currently, it's still very high growth. Then the question is, if we assume fairly high growth, for example, like 30-40% kind of growth for the next 5 to 10 years, right? That is for sure you can justify current share price. It's just that can they actually grow that high for that long or not? So that's the key questions to answer. And if you look at, you understand the questions that YCX just mentioned, right? For example, all this cloud gaming, the data analytics, all these are still very new now, still early. So I think the growth rate is also kind of easier to grow because we are not talking about like growing the traditional gaming segments, right? These are more matured in a sense. So I think that's just a summary of the valuation part now. If you believe the growth will be much higher, then you can even argue that they are undervalued now. But do you want to bet on the growth or not? I think this is depending on how much personal view that you have with regards to the company.
Yeah, and don't forget that actually with the ARM failure right now, right, the failure of the acquisition, Nvidia right now has an extra 21 billion sitting around. So how this 21 billion is going to be spent, based on the earnings report right now, they are saying that they are considering options. So it really depends on what they are going to do with this 21 billion. Yeah.
Yep.
I would like
Go ahead.
to step back a bit and answer and add a bit of opinion on what Boon Tee asked regarding the cloud gaming, which doesn't seem to be gaining traction. So from what I know, previously cloud gaming was just like a streaming service. So they discovered that latency is a big problem. So you are literally just putting your computer in someone's house, and then you are like taking a camera and streaming and then controlling it. And that is why the latency is a problem. So you have to distinguish between cloud gaming and multiplayer gaming, because multiplayer gaming, a lot of computation are done by the client side. So you are just sending like position data and all those are very, very streamlined and very optimized data. But for cloud gaming, previously it didn't take off because of this latency problem. There are a lot of games like those that needs running around, jumping around. It's not feasible. And also because if to reduce latency, what they could do last time was only to make the data centers physically nearer to the player, which requires a lot of investments. So in my opinion, to really make cloud gaming like take off, you need to have like a very lean client in your own computer. So you have to have a certain computing power in your client, in your own computer locally. And the heavy, maybe like graphics or what, can be done off-site. So because previously games are not optimized in this way, all the games before was just like a slap-on, where you have a normal game which you can buy and download on your computer, and then like PlayStation now, they just literally have another PlayStation somewhere else, and you are just streaming the video and putting inputs inside. So that's why it's not optimized for this kind of things. So in the future, I think if there's a push towards cloud gaming more, and developers are developing for this kind of type of gaming, then I think the latency problem will be solved. So you can have like a very thin or very lean client which does some computation locally, which do not require putting up to the cloud, while the graphics or maybe some other more intensive kind of computing will go on the cloud. So that is what is needed to reduce this latency problem. That's what I know, because it's a physical problem. You cannot have there's a limit to the speed of the electrons. So you have to overcome that somehow. You have to work around with that.
Right. So that's a good point that's brought up. And actually, there is actually a solution. I mean, I didn't get into it because it was pretty technical, but there is actually a solution particularly for this kind of games, which is that you require the low latency because the inputs need to be accepted, right? So particularly for, let's say, we talk about multiplayer games. Obviously the multiplayer games, how they work is that you have to send a package of information between the server and the client being the gamer and server being the central server that's processing the game for all the different gamers on the same particular multiplayer lobby. So the packets now that they send is getting, they obviously this depends on each and every game because some games that send smaller packets, they will obviously have better latency compared to games that have to send a lot of packets of data. So this one is not something that can be overcome because when you have multiple gamers having to sort of connect with each other, it really depends on how close they are to the server. That will determine the latency. So, but the other thing that is more brought out, which is like something like single player gaming, whereby previously, as Calvin rightly mentioned, was that the cloud gaming was just you're just gaming on somebody's computer, and the commands that you give are just sent over the internet over to that computer, and that computer basically inputs in the commands and then transfers back the streaming data back to you, and then you see. So you kind of play like you're like a very slow. You kind of like your actions are like delayed by like half a second or a second like that You have that feeling that your commands are delayed rather than responsive. So actually, there's what they actually do right now. The Nvidia is doing this, but there's a lot of other games that are also they are cooperating with Nvidia to do this. Is that they actually, because a single player game is predictable, you actually know at any point in time there's only a particular set of instructions a player can do. It means, like, let's say you are playing a single player game like say Doom, you can only shoot, or you can look up, look down, look left, look right, or you can jump, or you can move forward, move backward. So what the AI does is that they calculate all the frames at the same time. That means all the likely actions that your particular character will do at any given point in time. And then they just transfer all this data over to your client side. And so that when your client actually, like when your gamer actually keys in the command, right, let's say move forward, then it will probably select from, like, say, the 30 different commands that the 30 different scenarios that will happen next, and they'll just play the one that says move forward. So it's kind of like instead of like processing it real time, they process everything in advance, and then they just present out the solution. And the moment you select it, it just plays it out directly to you. So that is also part of the AI revolution that is going on right now in terms of like pre-rendering so that you don't render in real time, so that there's no lag. There's no lag, but there's no perceived lag by the gamer themselves. Yeah, so this is something that's pretty cool.
Yeah, very interesting. A lot of work around. It's not just the hardware side, right? I mean, it's not just everything have to solve using the old way, meaning the data have to transfer to the cloud and then back and forth, right? There are things that they can do to give you the impression that it is real time, but actually it is not.
Yeah, in this case, they are like Doctor Strange like that, which is like the AI itself actually predicts all the different outcomes for the next 2, 3, 4 seconds ahead, and just sends all the data to your client, and then whatever action that you do, then the client will just pick out the correct outcome for you. That's what they are doing right now.
Okay. Thanks a lot. I think we can switch gear a bit. There are a lot of questions here, and we are 1 hour into our call already. I think we can just go through the Bitcoin questions first, because I saw this question. Let me read out the questions. For YCX, I thought people say Bitcoin is digital gold. How come the movement is inverse of real gold? Stocks drop, coin also drop. You have any comment on this?
Let me send a photo. Let me just send a photo. I think the photo will be more apt. Yeah, this is a photo, which is that every time when gold drops and Bitcoin goes up, people start to say it's digital gold. And every time that gold goes down and Bitcoin goes down, they say that it's digital gold. Gold goes up and Bitcoin goes up, also digital gold. But when gold goes up and Bitcoin goes down, it becomes not digital gold. Yeah. So the idea here is that if you looked at like the previous time, because gold has a long history, gold has been around for 5,000 years and will likely still be around for a very long time. If you looked at, like, let's say something like the Great Depression during that time, 1920s to 1930s, and you look at the gold price during that time, you see that the gold price fluctuation actually fluctuates like crazy as well. Because during that time, there's also like a ban on gold. How they banned gold was that they actually confiscated gold from people. Yeah, America confiscated gold from people. Yeah, something that's unheard of in this day and age. But in the past, that's what happened. And gold actually dropped in price. And then there were all kinds of macro uncertainties that's happening then. And back then, there was also the debate whereby should we be buying gold or buying silver or buying property? And then in the end, you kind of see that depending on how you looked at it, all three assets still stuck around. And yeah, gold, silver, property is still around. And it's kind of the short-term macro fluctuations are just determined by short-term narratives. But then the long-term narratives itself, right, that has not changed, which is that the Bitcoin supply is just going down. And you can start to see that the most common this supply ratio that is on the exchange itself, this number has been consistently dropping all the way down, regardless of whatever short-term narrative is happening right now. Yeah, that in itself is a very bullish thing, because it shows that more and more people, despite there being more supply, right? Because as you know, there's about 37 Bitcoin minted per hour, right? So 900 Bitcoin a day. Despite there being 900 Bitcoin a day, the new supply coming in, the amount of supply that's on the exchanges that's available for trading is just dropping consistently over the past 10 years. Yeah, that's what is happening. Yeah, so if that isn't a good enough indicator, then I don't know what is like why are so much Bitcoin being removed from the exchanges if nobody values it, or rather if its price keep dropping, right? And if you look at the current retail, how many retail customers are actually holding onto their own wallet or putting onto exchanges? I would still say a lot of retail customers, they still just put their Bitcoin on the exchange and leave there. So it begs the question is, who are the ones who are removing the Bitcoin from the exchanges, right? Is it the institutions? It's most likely that, or it could be other players whom are thinking differently, who are stockpiling it while they still can. That's the idea I get from it. And yeah.
Yeah, and what was the reason of the drop then? Because if you say the supply to the exchange are dropping by right, let's say there should be like higher demand than the supply, right? It should go up, right? But the price dropped down. Do you think that this is as the impact of the short-term traders that short the futures or whatever, this kind of impact? Do you have any evidence or any things to share there?
Mostly it's yes, and it's mostly because there's a lot of long-term Bitcoin holders right now, right, that also look into things like say loaning out their Bitcoin to do other things. So what I mean by loaning out is that they borrow against their own Bitcoin to let all these short-term traders use that supply to do things lah. Yeah, so it is a market that is this is currently what's going on with it. And also there's a lot of other narratives that are in play right now. You can kind of see the narrative in this crypto space changes very quickly, like almost every 2 weeks the narrative changes. So, but what's for certain is that the long-term trends have not changed. Yeah, the short-term trends change every 2 weeks, and every 2 weeks you see a new narrative. Like this week is so whatever Ukraine thing that is, then you just see about 2 weeks ago it was like what Canadian truckers thing. Then you can kind of see that if the media narrative just plays around. Prior to that, they say it is money laundering and is used by terrorists, and then they start to classify the Canadian truckers as domestic terrorists. And then just this week itself, they start to say that the Bitcoin is used to transfer funds to Ukraine to support against an unjust attack by Russia. See, these are all just narratives, but all these narratives all depend on one thing, which is that the Bitcoin itself is a store of value. Otherwise, people wouldn't be using it to transfer value. Yeah, and you can kind of see that for the same reasons that Ukraine is now asking for donations in this, it's the same reasons that the banks themselves are being targeted through whatever cyber ops that prevents them from transferring money, or like SWIFT itself for Russia that prevents it from transferring money. And these banks are the ones that are being disrupted by cryptocurrencies, which is why you can see that despite having all these cyber security state actors, right? Why hasn't a single one of them decided that they can attack something like Bitcoin? That right? They didn't. Surely it must be a big enough target that some of them might decide that they want to attack it, right? But somehow it's not attacked at all. And if you look at the Bitcoin network, you can compare with all the other cryptocurrencies right now, which if you say the other layer ones, how many of them actually have like issues, while the Bitcoin network just trudges along at a slow 10 minutes per block, but it is reliable and stable and has not gone down for the past 10 years. Yeah, the network has not gone down for the past 10 years. It just continues churning out block by block every 10 minutes. That is the stability and reliability that Bitcoin is about. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the stable part is the technology and also the process of how these things work. So it's just keep on doing its things, right? But the unstable part is the price, because the price is all determined by the traders. Okay, on the price, what's your comment? I'm looking at this question. Thoughts on 100,000 Bitcoin?
100,000 Bitcoin, I would say it is barring some kind of major narrative like say a democratic country or whatever that faces some kind of issue, like maybe I would say maybe like Greece level. If you remember the Greece default level kind of big event, right? It's unlikely for Bitcoin to hit 100,000 this year, based on the trading structure, the market structure, because the traders are now in place that they have trades in place that just move the prices up and down a certain bands to actually accommodate for this. So there must be a major narrative, like maybe say maybe something on the level of Greece defaulting or whatever, that makes people lose faith in like a major fiat currency that moves towards this particular area. And you can kind of see that it's also a bit paradoxical, because whenever a fiat currency falls, there are only other benefiters to fiat currency falling, which is that the world reserve currency, which is currently still the US dollar, regardless of how badly it's managed or how much money they print, so long as any other fiat currency falls, the US dollar will go up. Yeah, because people just instinctively go towards the US dollar. So you can kind of see that the US dollar will be the last to fall, and every other fiat currency can fall first before the US dollar falls. Yeah, China probably a close second in terms of and EU probably a close third in terms of how much they produce. Yeah, Bitcoin itself is that the idea is that there's this central idea that will make more people move towards Bitcoin, which is that the currency itself. So you all know about money. Money actually has three definitions. It must fulfill three criteria. First criteria is that it must be a store of value. Second criteria is that it must be a unit of account. And third criteria is that it must be a medium of exchange. So the thing is that with all these new currencies, I mean with all the current fiat currencies, you can kind of see that there's a gradual degradation of the medium of exchange. The third attribute, which is to say that currencies are no longer as exchange worthy. What I mean by that is that, like, let's say you take $1 or whatever, you take Singapore dollars, right? You can go and buy, let's say, buy coffee from the coffee shop. Okay? But can you take the same money and donate to a terrorist? Like right now, can you donate the money to a terrorist? The answer is probably it depends on how you donate it, right? If you donate cash, like physically pass cash from you to a person A to person B, you can probably donate to a terrorist the cash if you want to. But if you want to do it through like a bank account and the other person is on like some kind of terrorist list, I don't know how they get on there, but if they are on some kind of terrorist list, the bank will probably block your exchange and say that, oh, you cannot transfer money in this way, or we'll lock your account as well, or we'll suspend your account as well. And it kind of like is an attack on the particular currency in a roundabout way, because that money itself, it becomes it's not money, you cannot actually exchange it for something that you want, which is maybe you support something, even if it's something that the rest of the world does not agree with, right? It becomes that your money is no longer money. It becomes more like vouchers. It's a voucher whereby the government decides you can only spend your voucher on certain things. And if it's certain things that we don't like, you cannot spend money on that. Yeah, that the money becomes like a voucher. And you can kind of see it starting in the China with their social credit system. It's just one step away from just saying, oh, I believe you are too fat or whatever, and you have been eating too much, and we believe that for the sake of your good health, you have to, or for the sake of your insurance costs, you have to eat less, and then your money can only be used to purchase this amount of goods or purchase these particular products from the supermarket. Yeah, they can do that. They can do that right now with their social credit system, because every single dollar or every single amount of currency is tracked by the government. They can straight away track your purchases and influence your purchases in certain ways. So your money is no longer money anymore, but just vouchers. That is the main issue that I have with the way all this money is going towards, or rather government issued money is going towards. And more people, I believe, will start to realize this as well, because how is what you earn actually useful if you cannot purchase what you want to purchase, or you cannot use it to do whatever things you want to do, whether it's good or bad.
Yeah, I think definitely true. But just for the audience here, just for the record, the donation to terrorists, that one is just an extreme examples. So we can of course think of like 10 or 20 different examples, that stuff that is borderline legal or illegal, and then government just don't like it, right? For example, like let's say if you want to donate to a anti-vaccination kind of campaign, is it legal or not? These kind of things, it become gray. So don't just take it as like, okay, Bitcoin, I like Bitcoin because I can use it to do illegal stuff, right? So this is the very extreme example, but there are for sure many other examples. So, okay, thanks a lot for all the comments. Let's go through some other questions here, because I think there are a couple of questions that's not so related to like Bitcoin or Nvidia, but YCX, please stay here because some question I'll just point it to you. Okay, let me read out questions. Is it time to all in now? So I think this is interesting questions. I'm looking at YCX or Kelvin. Maybe YCX first.
I would say that it's never time to all in. Yeah, I would never all in unless I mean, all in is not a concept that I would generally do. I don't think that I'm able to always time the bottom, right? I just know that it's very difficult. Like you talk about March 2020, I also didn't manage to time the bottom. It's like it just dropped. Like what like how? You also don't know whether it'll drop more or it'll drop less. And when it recover, you don't know whether it's a bull trap or bear trap or whatever kind of traps things that are things. And then it's only after like maybe a month or two, then you start to think, oh, probably it has recovered. Yeah. And probably you missed out on the very bottom. And yeah, that's the nature of things. It's not possible to time the bottom. Yeah. But what you can do is that you can kind of like look at something as in terms of allocation wise. That means for me, I don't particularly look at things like say, oh, now it's undervalued and now I think is the bottom, I'll buy in. But I kind of think at it as like, what are the narratives in play now, and are these narratives likely to change? And if they change, what are the effects quickly? What are the first order effects? What are the second order effects quickly or not? And based on that, right, do I want to actually like say put in a portion of money right now so that I find that even if it goes down further, I know that there's going to be a turnaround time, right? Yeah, there's going to be a turnaround at some point. It's just a matter of when. Like, so I take, for example, the current narrative that's going on right now is that, I'm sure you all remember about 2 weeks back or a week back, is that, oh, Russia is going to invade Ukraine. So even before the invasion, you start to see, oh, there's a lot of people thinking that if it invades, everything is going to drop. There's a lot of fear in the area. Everyone just keeps thinking, oh, invade is invade how much? Is it going to just invade just the east area, or is it going to invade the entire Ukraine? What's going to be the response, all these kind of things. But then if you take a step back and you look at the larger lens, is that how much is Ukraine trading with the world and how much is Russia trading with the world? And then you start to see, hey, Russia is only about 2 to 3% of the world market, and Ukraine is even less. And who does Ukraine particularly trade more with? It's actually with Russia. Ukraine's trade is 25% with Russia, is by far the largest trading partner. So, so obviously the conflict that's happening over there is in between these two countries, and it's unlikely to affect, let's say, a US company that does not specialize in products in the area. So then it looks, hey, all this money that's going out, where are they going exactly? Right? Like you look at, say, that whoever is Kevin Learns Investing, right? All his money that's going out, is he putting the money elsewhere or is holding them in cash? If he's holding them in cash, right, what's he waiting? What is the key thing that he's waiting for? Or is he going to put in some kind of fixed income instrument or whatever? Is there a product out there that is worthy of putting the money with there? The interest rates have not risen enough for the bonds to be worth it. So then there's only one place the money can go back towards, which is that they'll go towards these assets which are believed to be able to generate and extract more revenue. Yeah. So I
think we are losing YCX. Can't hear you at all now. I think maybe the line is not good now. So YCX, let me know if you are back. Meanwhile, we just carry out the discussions. Yeah. Let me just wait 2 more seconds. Okay, no. Well, say we lost you for like, I think,
No, I'm saying
30
that if it has
seconds or
dropped
so.
like, okay.
I don't know. Are you outside or what? Because the line is not so good. We
Okay.
lost you
What I'm
for
saying
30
is
seconds.
what I'm saying is that it's better to put in money every time you see that it's down and you believe that that particular asset, right, is something that will go up in the next 2, 3, 4 years, right? Then you should just look at it now as like a minor dip. You don't have to look so deeply into it, because unless you desperately need the cash for something, just put it there. Yeah.
Yep. Thanks a lot for the comment. Anyone else want to give your opinion on this all in? Kevin, you want to give any opinions? Are you all in now or you always all in? So no need to ask. I think Kevin also dropped off already. But I think for me personally, I would say I'm a fan of DCA. Just now YCX said he wasn't able to time the bottom of March 2020. I can proudly say that I managed to time the market. I bought at the bottom, but it's also because even before the drop as of February, I also do the DCA already. So by design of the approach, right, I change it to a weekly DCA, right? So by the design, I will always able to time the market as long as I have enough money to continue DCA lah. So that's how you time the market, by timing the top and also timing the bottom. Yeah, so that's my view lah. Don't look at the chart and just feel that because it dropped by 10%, it can already bottom. It will only go up. Don't have that kind of expectations. Because it is quite stressful once it dropped 10% and then you thought it's bottom already, you all in already, then it continued to drop another 10%. Then you squeeze money, put in more money, and then it drop another 10 or 15%, right? It becomes very stressful because you have this expectation that it shouldn't drop more. But in fact, because of all these market prices are all set by the traders, right? It can always keep dropping. I mean, even though the fundamentals are all still the same, the price can always react like in a way that you can't imagine. So that's why I say don't do this kind of things. Just have a systematic kind of DCA approach. Let's say if you haven't really invest much when the market was high, and then you look at the situation now, the prices has come down, right? You can always like increase your DCA, but always have some bullets or some flexibility for you to do more if the market drop or even go sideways. Don't have this expectation. Let me close the window first. It's raining.
Okay, I just like to point out another strategy for those who are interested, which is that rather than thinking about timing the bottom, if you really have high conviction that you think now is the bottom, is the very bottom, right? And that it can only go up and you'll go up in a V shape rather than trudge down in a slow, grindy way. You think that it will go up in a V shape, right? Then it's just best to just allocate an amount in calls. Yeah, because by its nature, if you buy a call itself, the maximum you can lose is that premium that you paid for it. Yeah. So if you are able to time the bottom, or if you really think that now is the bottom or whatever it is, just buy a call, because the call will end up to be, let's say you have $10,000. Just giving an example, you have $10,000. You can either choose to say put 10,000 into a stock, or you can just say, hey, maybe now is really the bottom. I'm just going to put 1,000 in calls, right? And if you calculate out the leverage ratio, when things keep dropping and you buy the call, your leverage ratio can actually be very high, because if you buy a out of the money call, and when the IV is low and you calculate it, it's actually very worth to buy it. Yeah, that's the thing about calls in a sense that you lose a limited amount. Let's say you have 10,000, you probably only lose like say 1,000, but then you actually have the exposure of let's say the 10,000 if it's a 10x leverage by buying the call. And let's say if you lose that 1,000 and it really drops down even more, you can DCA a call again by going in another tranche. But of course, you think about it this way, if you think about it this way, right, it's the same as, let's say you put 10,000 one shot at the start rather than put 1,000 in calls. If you put 10,000 one shot at the start and it drops another 50%, you lose 5,000. But if you put 1,000 in a course and it drops another 50%, the most you lose is that 1,000. So you actually still have 9,000 with you. And then by then, after it drops that 50% rate, you can buy another $1,000 of course and hope that it goes back up and probably earns you that $5,000 or whatever. So think about cost in that manner, yeah, as a way of having cheap leverage when everyone is fearful and selling. Calls are a very good device. Yeah.
Yep. Thanks a lot for the comment. So this one is done. I think this next question, Alibaba still worthwhile to hold on for recovery. I look around this round, we don't have Master Leon, we don't have Hayden. Hayden is not here, right? So I just want to ask around, has anyone looked at Alibaba earnings and have any comment? If not, we can just skip these questions now. Okay. No one want to comment? Let's skip this one now. We wait for other people who can comment more.
Sorry, Boon Tee. Yeah, I have a question. Okay, recently I think the non-GAAP EPS is around 2.5, right?
Which company that you're talking about? Alibaba?
Yeah, Alibaba. Right. So I could say that, okay, annualized, let's assume it's EPS of 10. Would that be a fair assumption? Then at current prices now, can I say the PE is, let's say 100 lah. Let's say the price drops 100. Can I say the PE is around 10?
Yeah, I think if you have a view in terms of the EPS, like what Master Leong said, right? After you do the exclusion of stuff that is not recurring, the EPS is around like certain numbers, right? I mean, that's your own assumptions, but I think it's a very simple and fair kind of assumptions to see it. So when you say P of 10, I think that's quite fair. Not saying that. But please bear in mind that this is all assumptions, because if you look at their earnings, right, I think in terms of even the adjusted EBITDA, there are numbers that are dropping like, 20%? So I'm not sure whether you can just say, okay, the earnings will just continue, stay flat in the years ahead. So I don't know. I don't have enough insight to make that kind of comments.
Yeah. But isn't Alibaba seen as a so-called growth stock? Like there is still, it is still seen as a growth stock, right? Am I right to say that? Just that growth has slowed.
Yeah, actually, if you look at the revenues growth, let's say in the past 5 years, right, it has grown very, very at a very high rate. So definitely you can consider that as growth stocks. But if I just look at the latest earning release, I saw that their revenues is growing still okay. It's not like they are slowing down in terms of their total revenues, right? But their earnings hasn't grown. I think they dropped, right? Their earnings. So there are some specific reason and some that is somewhat structural kind of reason. I'm not able to attribute it. So I don't know whether, like, let's say if we talk about like 3 years moving forward, is this trend is going to continue to persist or not? I really don't know. So need more insights to say whether it is growing or not. Because when you say grow, we need to look at all things, right? Revenue, their earnings, their cash flow, their margin. All this has to be considered together. But just a broad, like generalization is that revenue is still growing, but has slowed down also. So depending on how you classify growth stocks, right? Some people say something that's growing less than 20%, they just say, this is not growth stocks, right? It has to be 40 or 60%, that kind of growth, then only you consider as growth stocks. So there's only one part on the definitions, how you define growth stocks. But if you look at the past 5 years, it is now. Yeah.
Would you say it's a safe assumption to just assume the EPS is gonna stay 10? like all the way. Just assume no growth.
Oh, honestly, I don't have enough insight to give that comment whether they will grow or stay at 10 or even drop. So I really don't know. But I can tell you that even if someone say this 10 is sustainable, I am not surprised, because if you assume that 10 is sustainable and you look at the current price, right, meaning that the PE is 10, and then you say this is very cheap, I actually agree with this statement. I think those who selling Alibaba or not investing in Alibaba, I haven't seen anyone that say, I'm not investing because to me, Alibaba is expensive. You know, this comment is just not fair. It is cheap at the moment. I think people don't invest in the company. It's not because of the earning will drop or for sure will drop, these kind of things, right? It's just because of the regulatory angle that we see there's not much visibility on that front. So I think most people will say, okay, I really don't know how to predict what government is going to do, and if they're going to do anything, how will it impact the sentiment? How will it impact the fundamentals of the company? I think this is a huge unknown, and there are many people that will just say, okay, I can't see that. So I'm just going to stay away. It's not like they are bearish or they see that Alibaba earnings will drop to $5 in the next 5 years, right? It's not like that, right? It's just there's this unknown that's still hanging around, and there are people who just stay away. And I think that's quite fair also, right? Because in terms of the type of the risk that you are taking, different people just want to take different type of risk, right?
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Can I ask, is Alibaba giving out dividends?
No, zero dividends, but they already approve a share buyback. There's this amount that they already approve, but I don't think they accelerate their share buyback, meaning that the amount that they approved previously, right? They just say, okay, we will still target to do that share buyback. But whether they will step up the amount or whether they will like speed up the purchasing, right? The buyback, right? There's no such thing at the moment. So of course they still have plenty of cash on the balance sheet. If they want to do that, I'm sure they are able to do it. So the question mark is, why haven't they accelerate the buyback, right? If the share price is so cheap. Because you also need to think like, okay, our consideration from investor perspective is that if you look at a price that is dropped so much and you think it is irrational, right? And you think that this kind of discount is only temporary because soon it will revert to the intrinsic value, which could be much higher, right? Then if you are the management, you also will have the tendency to speed up the buyback and before the chance go away, right? But they are not doing that, right? So I think there's also this question on the management also think that the share price will continue to drop, and if so, they should hold on the buyback until, let's say, drop further, right? So I think that's some question mark. I don't have a view, to be honest. I know among the investor or non-investors, right, there are people who have various opinion. But me personally, I don't know. I just don't know. Like these are the talking points that I've heard. I just share.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions or comment? You can, because I see XB is here, right? You want to comment anything? Okay, if not, then we carry on. Okay, this is not a question, but let me read out. Can admin filter out nonsense questions before each TCSS session? The ability to post anonymous here is breeding some irrelevant banter. So I think, I will do this kind of cleanup before the discussions, because I saw that there are people who just post some jokes or like stuff that is not so serious. So I will clean those up. But I also just want to share, please don't post like all the stuff that is negative. You know, if you are seeking for a question, I think that's good to discuss. But don't post something don't take this as a platform to voice your frustration towards anyone or any topics. Okay, that's just a quick comment from my side. Okay, next one. I see many people voted that they will use margin if things get cheap. What are some factors to consider for someone new who may be considering? I'll go first before YCX. I think for new, right? For those who are new, I would just say don't do margin. By this, I means that don't put in, let's say, 20,000 and try to invest 30,000, these kind of things, right? Because if you do that, that's like 1.5x of leverage, right? And leverage ratio is not a constant thing. You can put 20,000 in, invest 30,000, and suddenly that 30,000 drop to 25,000. Then you are actually your ratio actually change. So I would say that don't use it, especially if you are new to investing, because it's very dangerous. The main risk is liquidations. There's situation, let's say on the day where Russia invaded Ukraine, right? You can see that the intraday price can drop very sharply, right? If the brokers that you're using, they kind of just de-risk, right? They can just change the parameters last minute, and then you might just be liquidated at that very lowest price point, So that one is definitely a risk that you are taking if you are doing margin. So I would say, please don't do that. That's the first statement. Second statement is that usually I will actually tell people that it's fine to enable the margin in the sense that you don't have to if, without the margin, let's say if you put in some monies, right, you cannot invest immediately. There will be a period where the money needs to settle first, and then only you can buy stuff, right? So you can enable it, enable the margin, especially you are using IBKR, they are not charging you anything, right? Then if you put in 2,000, you can invest 2,000 right away. Don't have to care so much on all this settlement at the back end, right? But you just need to make sure that the amount that you have invested, right, is the amount of money that you have in the brokerage. For example, if I know that I'm going to DCA 2,000 tomorrow, but today I just buy first 2,000, I don't see it, that's a huge issue, because that one is just like you take the margin as a convenience rather than as a permanent risk-taking kind of things, right? So just be careful on anything related to margin. Another thing is if you are doing sell options, sell put option, these kind of things, you pair it with margin, right? I think it's just a recipe for disaster. So please be very, very careful on this stuff. Yeah, I think YCX, you have any comment, because I recall you always tell people not to do margins, right? I think we are on the same page. Any other thoughts? Yeah.
The thing is for margin, is not when I say you don't do margin, right? There's also the other thing, which is that it doesn't mean that you have to do margin in order to leverage. You can have leverage without margin. It's just that you don't you don't do things like, for example, you sell options, because if you sell options, then that's usually when like the how bad things happen. That's how it happens. Yeah. If you actually just buy options, or if you really want to sell options, you do it as a spread. It is actually pretty safe. Yeah. That's the thing about it. It's just that before you even go into options, right, you should calculate. You should take some time to calculate what it means by, let's say, any asset, particularly, let's say you put in $100 and it goes up by 10%, you'll get $110, right? But if you put $100 into a call option and it goes up by 10%, how much do you gain? If you are able to calculate this, and you see that it moves according to what you calculated, right? That means you know the formula. Then I think you are ready to actually try out options. If you're unable to calculate this, right, then I don't even suggest you try options. You have to be able to calculate how much is it exactly you are able to win or lose based on the price movement, which is the delta, what they call it. Yeah, that's the thing about it. And leverage, you can leverage in the sense that, as I said, leverage through buying options rather than leverage through selling options, because selling options are done at the wrong time or done at the wrong, and then you suddenly see that the price shoots up above a certain number, right? The psychological panic that you have for people who just started will make them like do very irrational decisions and lose a lot of money very quickly. Yeah.
Yep. Thanks a lot. Yeah, don't do these kind of things if you are not advanced. Okay. Next one. Any discussion on why the market V-shape on the day of invasion? Will the recovery continue next week? Weak hands, so value of investor buy. I think this one, YCX, just now you mentioned also, right, on the, like, people just before the war, they talk about like, okay, could there be invasions? There's this fear that's playing around. Then the moment after they invaded, there's actually the uncertainty has already been removed, and then people are realizing that actually Russia and Ukraine, they are not like huge part of the financial market that we are investing in, right? So it's quite irrational kind of price movement. So I think this is all just too much focus on what's in the daily or even what's the price action within the week. It's all sentiment driven. I wouldn't say this is, even for those who bought at the bottom during the invasion, right? The day of the invasions, right? I don't think that's value investor buying, you know. That's not the case now. Value investor, these are people who buy when the price is really, really cheap. Like, it's not like just within daily low and then they bought and they call it value investor, right? So not the case now. Yeah. Any other comment on this? If not, we just move on. This is not a question, but just a comment. But let me read it out. Could YCX tone down when answering questions? The everything money game name Paul personality seems similar to YCX. Always talk aggressive. I think, to be fair to YCX, I chat with YCX for quite a number of times on voice chat, right? I think his tone is quite soft. I don't agree with this statement. But quite direct kind of communications, which I like. I think no beating around the bush, right? Just straight to the point, right? But yeah, different people have different talking style. So to be fair with YCX, just different style can just get used to it now. YCX, you want to comment? If not, we'll just skip. Yeah.
Nothing much to comment. I'm a bit just like that.
Yeah. Okay. Then skip this. Question for Boon Tee. How fast did you took to reach from 0 to 100K, and when did you start investing? I think this one, let's talk about the IBKR account, right? In the beginning, to me, it's just like, I want to set this habit of DCA. I do 2,000 per month. So you can calculate, right? Like 2,000 per month, how many months do you need, right? So it's about like 4 years in order to hit that 100K. So that's for me. But I think once I'm comfortable with the DCA and I step up with the DCA amount, like to 3,000 or 4,000 per month, and then after that I get into like all individual stocks, and then like 2020 and 2021 market just rally, right? So I think it takes quite a short period of time to reach 100K. So I think this is not something that is anything crazy. It's just that as the saving increase, then just put in more into DCA and it will compound faster. So in case you are curious, I don't have like huge increment. It's just that my children, they went from kindergarten to primary school. So actually the fee dropped during this period, so the saving just increased because of lower expenses. So, a couple of hundreds here and there, I think all this make quite a big difference in terms of how much liquidity that I have for my own investment. Okay, so I hope this is done. Thoughts on whether GCP can compete well enough with AWS and Azure? Anyone has insight with regards of all this infrastructure cloud? Anyone want to comment on this? Okay, no comment. Actually, I don't have that much of insight, to be honest. But I can share with me my observation is that AWS, right, despite having a huge market share, their growth rate has actually increased in the recent year or recent quarters, right? So they are not slowing down. I think that's because it's not like they are doing everything right and Azure and GCP, they are doing something that's wrong, right? It's not the case. It's just because the entire pie is still growing very nicely, and the cloud business model, the way of doing things using cloud is just more superior than each company is doing their things internally, having their own server. So this is just the business model part that is so good that the entire pie is growing. That's why if you look at GCP, AWS, or Azure, they are all growing very high at the moment. And so far, there's still no sign of slowing down. So that's my comment. And if you compare their relative growth, right, I think Azure is still growing much faster than AWS. You can argue that that's because their base is smaller, right? I think that's also fair to say, but they are also executing it quite well on Azure. And GCP, I think being GCP, this is Google Cloud, right? So they are also like leveraging stuff that they are strong at, for example, like all the machine learning stuff. And, this is not just like providing infrastructure and that's it, right? There's a lot of things happening behind the scene. For example, like all the analytical tools that they put in as an add-on, right? So I think these are the differentiating factors that make customers using GCP compared to the others. So they are good at executing this. I think they are all doing well. If you're asking me, I don't know who is better than the others. That's why I have investment in Amazon, in Microsoft, and Google. So sometimes it's not like we have to pick the winners. You can just invest all if the picture is that all these three are just disrupting the traditional way of doing things now. So that's my opinion. Masalim just left the group. I think he just want to take a rest. I think it's good sometimes if you are having too much of all this social media and by just staying away from social media for a while, and I think these are all good. I think everyone should practice this. If not, there's so much noise in how we consume all this content, So I think this is a good thing. With Chicken, I think he's still actively posting. You can just look at his YouTube channel. So if for those who are following his coverage on Alibaba, I think he's still keep on churning up content. But with regards to Alibaba latest earnings, I haven't really followed up closely. I already divested my investment already, so I'm taking it a bit slow. I'm reading other stuff at the moment. So go to his YouTube if you want to hear from him. Okay. Next one. Any views on which region is best to invest in now, and also if better to allocate towards growth versus value? Anyone want to comment on this? No? Okay. I think for me personally, I actually don't really like to see things as growth versus value, because how this is not like binary. Like if I choose growth, I'm not value. If I choose value, I'm not growth. It's not that things, right? This is two different dimensions, right? So you can have companies that is high growth, score highly on growth and value, and there's also companies that score badly in terms of growth and values. And the growth itself, right, is also part of the value. Because, for example, like Nvidia, right, if I have a very high insight in terms of what they are doing, and I know for sure that they will grow very fast in the future, right? If I put in that growth outlook into the valuation, actually I can say that they are undervalued, right? So how should I put Nvidia into growth or value? So this is 2x2 kind of metrics. Don't see this as a binary kind of things. So this is my first comment. Then the second thing is like, okay, if you are referring to like those factor things and you only see those net kind of things as a value, okay, that's your definition. I think that's also fair. But I actually can't comment on this now. I would rather, let's say, if you're giving out a couple of examples of companies, right? And then we can comment on those companies specifically, because it's very hard to generalize everything to just value and growth now. But if you're looking at a specific company, we can talk about their business model. For example, like with Nvidia, we can talk about what is their segment that is towards maturity, which are the segments that is growing, which are the segments that is still at infancy. We can talk about it, right? How does it difference compared to the competitors? I think we can talk a lot on specific companies, but when you start to generalize things, right, I think this is I don't know how to discuss, Yeah, that's my difficulty to comment on this stuff. Okay. And any other view? If not, I'll just skip. Yeah, just stop me if you have any comment. Okay, the next one is art really undervalued? I think my personal view is that now it's really hated. If you look at from the peak until now, right, they have dropped so much already. Not just ARK ETF themselves, even if you look at the companies that are invested in, for example, like companies like Teladoc, Roku, Twilio, these kind of companies, right, they actually drop quite a lot. And I also saw that they are, this one, they are hated to an extent that there are people who actually treat this as an opportunity to just continue to short the ETF and also their holding companies. And they are making money, right? If you, let's look what's happened in the past, let's say 1 or 2 months, right? These short sellers, they are making money. And you look at their top holdings, right? For example, you see, except for Tesla, right? You see Teladoc, Roku, Zoom, these are their main companies. And if you look at T-Doc, right? Their short interest is actually like, this one, short percent of float is 15%. And then Roku, 11%. And then Zoom, 5%. And Coinbase, 5%. Tesla, also, Tesla is always shorted one, but 3% is not that high. But the rest are all quite shorted by the traders. I would say that, with all this high short ratio, I think they are already at a level that is, I would say, not overvalued at the moment. But whether you want to invest or not, that's your personal preference. Because all these companies that was shorted heavily, I think most of them are still not cash flow positive. So if they are not cash flow positive, if you are bullish on these companies and you believe that they are just superior compared to their competitors, right? I think this is a good opportunity to start accumulate the shares now. So that's my take. That's just my take. Any other view with regards to ARK or any companies that was just mentioned? Okay, no. Let's proceed. YCX, aside from Nvidia, are there any other companies you consider worth investing on the AI, ML, Metaverse play, or any comments on competition Nvidia face? YCX?
Okay, so first part of the question, which is worth investing in the AI, ML, Metaverse play, right, is that a lot of all these exciting AI, ML, Metaverse, it's very hard to actually look at their fundamentals, and it's also very hard to look at it's very hard to have like a insider look at how they are running their business models, because what I noticed from this kind of spaces is that they are more open to private equity investing. And when they have a good model, right, they are not likely to actually go public equity, because the nature of their work is that they can, if they have a good working product, a good working data product, they can very easily find private capital and to actually invest and to actually scale up. And by nature of it being in the AI space, right, they don't actually need a lot of funding to go massive scale. This comes back to the general idea of why do companies go for public equity in the first place. The idea of going public equity is more of to gain enough financing to enter into global markets, because going to global markets need a lot of money, and they are confident that they have this particular mode or economies of scale that allows them to scale in that way. That's why they go for public equity. But for something like that, increasingly, if you see things that are going AI or ML, they are by nature, they are already across borders. They don't really need to say set up operations elsewhere or be tied to some kind of hardware or any kind of things like that. So the only reason why they will go public equity is maybe their investors want them to actually cash out or that kind of particular play itself. So I'm very skeptical of all these AI companies that go public equity, rather than stay private, because I'm seeing that private is all the ways that they can actually gain a lot of, they can actually expand very quickly and they don't need public. That's the way I'm looking at it from having seen like how all these ML algorithms work. You are across borders already. Why do you need to go public, right? So there must be a reason to go public. You go public is to get more funding, but how are you using the funding? Are you expanding in a certain way? If you aren't, then what is the main purpose of going public other than just cashing out? That's my thought on it. Then in terms of like Nvidia competitors, right, what I actually do, I believe in actually looking at the different metrics that the industry uses. So like one of the common ones that I look at is actually these ML commons. And in terms of AI, right, this is a very common one, which I post in the link, mlcommons.org. And you can kind of see that basically whoever wants to challenge Nvidia in AI, they have to kind of pass this benchmark. They have to submit their hardware to compete against in these benchmarks in all its categories, or even in some of the categories to actually gain customers. Because this benchmark is how ML actually compares with each other. Yeah. And in terms of like other areas whereby, let's say we talk about gaming share, right? What I do is I look at the Steam hardware survey, which they do every quarter. Posted the link as well. It's a hardware survey by Steam, and you can kind of see the video card usage by Nvidia over the different on a monthly change or on a monthly change basis. So I look at this and I also think about, okay, so is there any competition in this area, and what is the uptake rate of like the newer series, which is why I'm able to tell you that Nvidia right now 30 series have about 15% market share, and is based on past trends over the past 10 years, right? They are moving towards 25% this year, and then probably towards 30 to 35% or overall lifetime uptake of the product. Yeah, because that's how, I'm sure you all know, when you launch a product, that's how the product cycle goes about. It's the same for even iPhones or even other hardware products. They typically follow this cycle. Yeah. And competitors in terms of other areas, which is data center wise, right? Data center wise, this area is pretty much not many competitors in the data center that provides the entire package solution that Nvidia is currently providing. Yeah. And that is largely because of the economies of scale of GPU computing compared to CPU computing. Because CPU computing is single-threaded, or rather is single-threaded in such a way that there's a cap to it. It's task-oriented one by one, whereas GPU can do it in parallel, and that's where the major advantage is. But having said that, I looked at the trends of the past year itself, and I'm seeing that more and more, increasingly, you start to see that Intel and AMD and all these other providers like Qualcomm or all these, they are starting to produce, all of them are moving towards the trend of solution in the entire stack. That means it's not just the CPU, but also the GPU and whatever things, their own memory, their own storage, their own cables, their own throughput. They are all moving in this area, and the reason for that is because it's the same as Facebook. That everyone is starting to realize that you have to own the hardware, and then you have to make your hardware integrate with each other, so that when you sell this complete solution, the customers are not able to mix and match mix and match, because when you mix and match, you might get the best of whatever works. But nowadays, you see what AMD is doing with all its smart. They have this smart memory thing that when you pair your AMD GPU with AMD systems and stuff, you get extra performance out of it. So those are the kind of things that Nvidia feels threatened in this area, that they have to at some point own the CPU stack as well. Because if they don't, and Intel and AMD are expanding into the GPU stack, then it's a matter of time before AMD and Intel start to sell their own full bundle solutions that have cost efficiencies or performance efficiencies in that direction. So Nvidia is reading the writing on the wall and is moving towards creating their own CPUs, particularly in the high performance computing area first, and see whether it can go over into the desktop area later. Those are the competition narratives that are going on. As usual, a lot of the things is more on the execution side than it is on the what's happening right now. Because if you look at what's happening right now, you see that Nvidia is just the top player in all these areas. So it's about what might happen later, and which is why I look at things like the benchmarks and I look at what the other companies are doing and whether their narratives will stick.
Yep. Thanks a lot for the comment. So I think for those who are following Nvidia, you can just watch all the recent GTC, right? So you can see that even like the CPU that YCX just mentioned, right? This is already on the roadmap. So they will do something in the soon. So you need to have this kind of understanding if you are going to invest in the individual companies. So I'm conscious of the time because now it's 12:35 already. But there are a couple more questions that I just want to quickly run through because just short answer from me. So just bear in mind for another 5 to 10 minutes. Let me read up. I'm 100% in growth stocks. Portfolio got hit badly since December 21. I have faith in this growth stock. Should I continue to DCA? Feels like catch falling knife. I think this is the reasons, right? Because you see that as the price continue to drop, you don't want to at one point just say, okay, I all in already, no more money. Then you just keep on watching the falling knife and can't do anything, right? So I think that will be, at least psychologically, is really quite tough if you end up with that situations. So my suggestion is always like, okay, please pace all the purchase. If you are having a very high conviction on the companies, could it be ETF or could it be individual stocks, right? Then just continue to DCA along. And if it drops more, with the same amount of money, you can actually buy more shares, right? So that's actually definitely a good outcome. Because I believe for most of us here, we are still accumulating instead of already 70 years old and just want to, and is thinking about liquidating our investment, right? So I think that's my comment on this. I feel ashamed to buy an ETF. I think no need to be ashamed. You'll be feeling quite proud of yourself after 3 to 5, 10 years, knowing that you are actually beating 50% of the other investors. And you know, that 50%, right, is not like all the people that don't know how to invest, right? That 50% will include people in hedge funds, institutional money, people who study hours and hours, and they do all the stock picks, right? And you just buy an ETF and do nothing, and just enjoy your life, and you beat 50% of them. So I think this is a good deal to me. So don't feel ashamed. Okay, this one is done. Any recommendations on companies to invest in for the AI field? I think this one we discussed a lot already. I'm not sure whether we want to go into that details, right? To me, when I look at this, right, you see the growth of AI. I think the companies that you want to invest are those like FANG names, especially Nvidia. I think Nvidia is growing nicely. The stuff that they are working on, right, like the stuff that YCX just shared with us, right, there are many of those areas they're still at infancy level. You know, there's still a lot of ways, a lot of opportunities. The TAM itself also is still expanding, so there are tons of opportunities. I think we can, if you have any suggestion, you can just give your suggestion and then we can talk in more details. Okay. Next one. I love YCX much better than Chicken and Master Leong. Don't do this kind of comparisons. You know, all of us here, right? we are all just individual investor, and then we are all just doing our sharings, right? There are different format. Some will, like, for example, like Chiking, he do all the sharing on his YouTube channel. Master Leong does his sharing on his Substack. I mean, these are all different way of sharing our perspective. Every one of us, like, let's say if you are chatting in a chat group, that's also one form of sharing, right? So I mean, all this sharing is just like sharing the perspective. Don't do this kind of comparisons. We are not having competition to say who is better and who's not, right? So that's my comment. Next one. Could we disown YCX Nvidia, especially with high PE, high PS ratio, not worth for entry? Similar to Tesla, need generate high sales to justify. I think I will give my take on this. You know, there are people who don't look at individual companies in detail, and they're taking a shortcut, right? So what they did is that they just pull out from some platform, for example, like Finviz, they just rank companies based on PE, and then they just say, okay, this PE of 70 is higher than the other companies of PE of 20, hence the 70 is overpriced. To me, this is like, you know, there's this sharing that I put in the group also from Professor Damodaran. He said that, okay, value investor, they just gone lazy, right? They just gone lazy. They just look at the PE and conclude stuff, right? To me, it's totally okay to be lazy. If you say you are lazy, you just go for ETF. I think that's a very, very good strategy. You save a lot of time, and then you're also less stressful, right? Because ETF is the entire market already. But if you are onto single individual names, right, then please don't be lazy. Please don't look at the PE, rank it, and then comparing two different companies and say, because the PE is high, hence it is expensive. Because you want to say this company is expensive, you need to do the DCF, right? Because you need to price in the growth in order to come up with DCF and compare with the price. Then only you can say whether it is overvalued or not. Don't just look at the PE. So that's one comment. The other thing is that, you know, it's very hard to own a high PE companies and then without knowing the details, right? You need the insight, the deep insights, right? For example, if you're investing in Nvidia, you need to know what they're working on, what are they working on in terms of the the CPU side, the data analytics, the autonomous driving, are they competing well with Tesla and so on? If you invest in Tesla, you want to know what they are doing with the 4680 batteries. You want to know all these details so that you have the high conviction on their future growth rate and their future profit margin, right? So don't just take a shortcut. That's my short answer to this comment. Okay, let me read out this one. Disagree that YCX is too aggressive. Thanks YCX for the candid, frank opinions and sharing. Yes, I totally agree with this statement. All this sharing, even just like 7 or 8 slides, right? This actually take efforts, right? So I really want to say I appreciate the effort and the sharing in the group. I think these are all good contents. Then for the other group members, if you want to have a more in-depth discussion, right, I would encourage you to do the same. You can prepare 3 or 5 slides and then just talk about it during the voice chat, and then we can have a in-depth discussion, right? So on behalf of all the group members and whoever watching this on the YouTube as well, right? If you are benefiting from this, I just want to say thanks to YCX. Okay, next one. How come Baba bottom line so lousy? As I said before, I haven't looked into details. I won't comment here. If in coming weeks, if anyone can comment, we can always come back to these questions, discuss Alibaba in more details. What are your thoughts on the selling naked puts, non-cash secured strategy with margin, using portfolio stocks as collateral? Is the reward good for the risk? I think this one, I would consider this as an advanced kind of strategy, and this is definitely not long-term strategies because if you are selling put options, I think this is the data gang, right? Where people just short or selling put options. Usually they are like 1 month or less, and just let the time decay and just profit from that now. I think definitely if you are comfortable and you are advanced enough to these kind of things, definitely you can profit, but it's not a free monies, right? These are like risk reward kind of things. But you cannot skip the learnings parts, right? Stuff that YCX just shared, right? For example, like all the delta, all the Greeks, you need to know, and then how to react if the price movement change, the price action. You need to know these kind of things. If you know it in details, and it can become a profitable strategist, right? I'm not saying like this is definitely don't go to area. It's just that you cannot skip the learnings part. Reward good on
I
think the skill part. Yeah,
I'd like to add that you can do it, but try to cap it. Cap it in the sense that if you want to sell puts using your portfolio as the collateral, you at least do it as a spread. That means you buy a lower put at the bottom, so that in the event that things actually go to shit, you actually still have something left over, Yeah. That's what I would say. You don't try to be so greedy as to sell the puts and then leave it as uncapped. Do a spread instead. Way better.
Yeah. Different strategy, I would say. But anyways, options is a complicated topic, so I can't cover in quickly here. So I think because of the time constraint, I'll just go through 2 more questions, and then I think we will just end the call here. So I think this is question for me. It's comment on my portfolio, right? So this questions, I believe in December 2021, your portfolio was near 500,000. What is the current value? What is your plan? DCA, use margin, borrow money and pump. The peak, I remember, it was around 450,000 Sing dollar. And then since then it has dropped. And then at the same time, I also, like as a normal monthly DCA, also put in money. Currently, I don't recall, to be honest. I think it's around 380,000 or so. So I checked, I think just 2 days ago, my portfolio, just the loss, talking about loss from the peak, it dropped by Singapore dollar 90,000. Around 90,000. So I think it's about 20%. So I think this is quite normal. If you look at the March 2020, right, it dropped about I think 35% or so. So 20% to me, given that there's a war going on, right? So I think this is a war plus the monetary tightening all come at the same time. So I think 20% drop is to me quite fair. I won't say that this is bottom already, market is irrational kind of things. I think to me it's just normal thing, normal environment. I can make sense of what's in terms of the magnitude of the drop. To me it's not crazy environment. But in terms of DCA, I'll just continue to DCA. To me it's not, the market hasn't dropped to the extent that I want to rack up my margin, borrow money, and then just keep on pumping. To me, I'm not at that stage. I'm kind of bearish if you recall the discussion that we had in the previous weeks, right? Since the monetary tightening started, I think that was January, already sounds very bearish. But I'm not doing market timing, right? So I'm not selling like meet Kevin, right? Just selling and then buy back when I think it's cheap. I'm not doing that kind of things because I still believe that long-term investing is just to buy and do nothing, right? So that is just the default. I have bought into TSMC this week as part of my DCA, and I look at the share price also cheap, right? So I bought into TSMC. Yeah, so that's just a quick comment from my side. And the other question that I want to cover is this, Boon Tee, are you still bullish on TSMC? My answer is yes. I know that there's this concern, this Ukraine situation, and people already started to extrapolate it to the relationship between US and China, and whether China will actually invade Taiwan, right? I think this concern, I would say that it is a fair it is fair to have this kind of concern. It's normal to have this kind of concern. Geopolitics stuff is always tricky, right? Because even with Russia versus NATO or Ukraine right now, I think even Putin himself, I don't think he liked this current situations, right? In a way, he also forced into this decision that he has taken. So it's just to me, it's just like could end up with a situation whereby like lose-lose situations. It's kind of sad, But whether anyone has any good way to prevent this kind of things is also, I doubt that now. It's very complicated and very complex. My take on this issue with regards to war and Ukraine, right, it's just that don't believe on simple narrative like, Putin is crazy, Biden is useless, these kind of things, right? I mean, it's quite fun to make a memes and then just joke about it. I think that's one level. But if you sincerely believe that these world leaders are doing crazy things or they're stupid, right? I think it's just that you are not deeply enough, because geopolitics is very, very complex, and the options that they have is actually quite limited, I would say. So just appreciate how complex it is rather than believe on all this media that giving simple narratives. So that's my take on this. I think that's it. Can't cover all the questions, and I actually still don't know how to stop the questions from coming in. So I apologize for that. I think we'll stop here just for the sake of time. And I'll just say thanks a lot to YCX for the sharing. I think today's episode, you talk more than me because you are giving so much good contents. I think I'll just better let you to speak more, right? So thank you very much for all the sharings in the group and today's session. You want to have any closing statement before we close the call?
I'll just post the links of like the other kinds of research that I do in the chat itself, because I do believe in like looking more closely at the what's happening on the ground, or what's happening in the spaces that they are in, rather than just looking at the financial statements itself. It's more of like a confirmation kind of thing. Yeah.
All right. Then thanks a lot for today's session. Thanks a lot for everyone who give their opinions, their view, and also just dialing in, right? So I see there's a long list of people here. Thanks a lot for joining, and we chat again. All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.